So we see here a potential juror running a little bit behind schedule. The attorneys there meeting for a sidebar with Judge Deborah Nelson. One thing that is definitely different, Mark, that we see here is where George Zimmerman is sitting. It looks as if he is facing directly towards the jury box. Explain to me why they're choosing to do that.
Well, you're going to have both sides really facing the jury box. You're going to have the prosecutor on one side and his team, and you're going to have the defense lawyers and their team on the other side. And you're always going to have a defendant at every essential necessary part of a trial, and this is clearly among the highest. And so he's going to be there with his attorneys, and he's going to be giving them input, whispering in their ears. They're going to whisper back about the selection process. Remember, they also have a jury consultant with them who is, really giving input as they counsel, and they're picking who they think would be the best for them. And, you also want to make sure that, I'm noticing that George Zimmerman has been more animated towards the last couple of days than the first couple of days. He was very robotic-like those first couple of days. And either he loosened up or he got a talking to by his attorneys, because the jurors are watching him. And it's going to be a lot harder for them to convict a person that they sense has feelings and is a living, breathing human being, rather than some robotic-like figure who's just sitting there stone-faced. So I've noticed a real change in his outwardly appearance and a loosening up. And I think that's a good thing from a defense perspective. I think that the state is doing the same thing. They want to endear themselves to these jurors. They want to make sure that whatever they say, they represent the people of the state of Florida, and they speak with authority, power, and knowledge. Well, I think that the prosecutor, especially in this case, Bernie Delaronda, there was a couple of jurors, at least a couple of them, that you could see there was a tension there. As I said, like if you were playing poker with him, he has a tell. You can tell very simply that when he didn't like somebody's answer, or they were that type of juror he was looking for. He's got to watch that, particularly at this proceeding, at this stage right now. You've got to be real careful about being intimidating, because not only do you have that one-on-one with the jury, that potential juror that may turn off that juror, but everybody else is watching you now. And it's an organic process with the jury. It's very interesting how it works. You often talk to alternates who sit through the entire trial, and then at the end of the trial they're dismissed, and then you talk to them and they'll say, well, I was going to convict or I was going to acquit, and you find out it's completely different than the actual verdict that comes in, and trial lawyers will tell you that over and over. And that's in large part because there's an organic jury dynamic that takes place when the jurors are in deliberation at the end. There's a movement. They become one, and different parts of the organism really have different functions. Some are followers, some are leaders, some add one element, some hit a point that everybody else missed, or the jurors as a whole may focus on something that all the lawyers and even the judge thinks is rather innocuous and irrelevant, and that's what they've been focusing on. So it's really a fascinating dynamic. You'll also see some of these, the attorneys, sometimes you are trying to keep somebody on that you really think is going to be a leader. So you might not ask them a lot of questions because you don't want to tip your hand to the other side. On the other hand, you might allow a juror in who's really not on your side, but you recognize that they're likely going to be a follower, and they're going to go wherever the flow goes, and they're not going to take control of that jury. And so, these are some of the movements that you're thinking about. You're moving all the time. You're thinking about, and as you're trying to identify who's best to serve on your jury.
It's amazing. Wow. Something to really think about. Who's going to be the foreman, who's going to be the leader, and who's going to be the follower. Very interesting, Mark.
They're not going to be involved in the proceedings.